Chapter 71. 71, Claiming Merits from the Heavens. Please, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 71. Claiming Merits from the Heavens. Please bless me again, translator. Nyo.bo Studio Editor. Nyo.bo Studio. Although he already had a perfect scapegoat candidate in mind, Lu Yuan was not in a hurry to start his national theft scheme. After all, he had just arrived. He would not start causing trouble so early. Before he came to the Great Xia Kingdom, the kingdom was still rather prosperous. However, after he arrived, it started going downhill. Once someone connected these two things, the possibility of Lu Yuan being suspected was undoubtedly very high. As a steady person, Lu Yuan would never let himself fall into such danger. Even if someone took the blame, he, the sixth prince, could not be included in the list of suspects. Therefore, Lu Yuan had to ensure that he had an absolute alibi before he could start his national theft scheme. If he wanted to do all this, he would need at least 2 to 3 years to set the pieces in place. Haste makes waste. A steady person would always be steady no matter what he did. Unless he had a 98% chance of success, he would never make a move hastily. As long as he kept this in mind, he would not be in danger. Lu Yuan felt that the reason why he had been able to develop so smoothly over the past few years was inseparable from his stable personality. If he behaved like the other transmigrators, who were impatient and acted tough from the beginning, the grass on his grave would probably be 3 meters tall by now. For instance, Chen Yan and Miss Mu Chichi were undoubtedly the perfect targets for him to demonstrate his strength on. If it was a normal transmigration scenario, Lu Yuan would have used these two people to show off after he achieved foundation establishment through the way of the heavens, and thus display his shocking talent. After inspiring countless passers-by with awe, he would most likely be sent to the main battlefield. After that, he would turn the tables on the battlefield when faced with peril time and time again, achieving shocking cultivation. However, was Lu Yuan an ordinary person? Obviously not. He was not a fool. If he could cultivate safely in the rear, why would he foolishly go to such a dangerous place like the front line? Lu Yuan couldn't guarantee that what he took was definitely the main character's script. What if he had a supporting role or even a villain script? His first exposure to danger might end up causing him to push the main character into the limelight with his own life. Lu Yuan didn't want to be such a sucker. Compared to being pretentious and humiliating others, Lu Yuan preferred to stay in the novice village and use his strength and skills that far exceeded those of players of the same level to fight a battle without suspense. This feeling of being the sixth in line and tricking people from the shadows was just as good as being pretentious. Not only would his safety be guaranteed, but he would also gain a lot. Wasn't this a steal? Lu Yuan liked the feeling of being the sixth prince. After helping Su Waner change her fate and obtaining a huge amount of luck value, Lu Yuan also began to prepare to achieve foundation establishment through the way of the heavens for his spiritual roots. This time, he was prepared to achieve foundation establishment for his wood and fire dual spiritual roots through the way of the heavens. The cultivation technique he would use this time was the 9 flaming cicada transformations. If he succeeded this time, not only would he be able to obtain 2 foundation establishment spiritual roots, but his overall spiritual root aptitude would also increase by a level. Later on, he could even obtain a tool clone. The importance of a tool clone to Lu Yuan now was apparent. He would get a perfect tool clone that did not know fatigue, did not complain, and worked obediently. With the tool clone, Lu Yuan's skill proficiency could undoubtedly improve faster. He wondered why the 9 fiery cicada transformations only provided 1 clone. If he could obtain a few more clones, his skill cultivation speed would undoubtedly increase significantly. A second advancement skill like the Divine Soul Pill refinement technique could result in such a huge change for him. If he could have a few more second advancement skills, the improvements he would experience would be unimaginable. As a man of action, Lu Yuan moved very quickly. After he returned, he immediately began to make preparations for his breakthrough. He came to his courtyard and activated all the arrays in the courtyard. He even reminded the people outside, saying, "Even if the devils attack the Qingyun sect, don't let anyone come in and disturb me." Upon hearing this, even though the practitioners guarding outside did not know what Lu Yuan was going to do, they understood that this matter must be very important to him. Hence, they also made up their minds that no matter what happened, they would not let anyone disturb him. Apart from these arrangements, Lu Yuan also prepared many methods to prevent outsiders from disturbing him. This included, but was not limited to, planting green flame pills and placing puppets at the door. If someone stepped into the courtyard, the person would instantly activate the green flame pills buried below the surface and would be scorched by the exploding green flames. Immediately after, the puppets lying in ambush in the surroundings would also move out in an instant and attack the enemy. Lu Yuan's courtyard also had a magic array set up by Shang Yun. Moreover, the small courtyard was located in the center of the Devil Slayers division. Therefore, if an enemy wanted to come to Lu Yuan's courtyard, not only would they have to fight their way through the many practitioners of the Devil Slayers division, they would also need to withstand Lu Yuan's various defensive methods. Lu Yuan could not help but admire his own thorough preparation. Even in the novice village, he still thought that his imaginary enemy was far stronger than anyone here. With the methods he had arranged, let alone these weaklings in the novice area, even if the foundation establishment stage cultivators from outside came, they would definitely be killed before they even saw Lu Yuan. After confirming that his protective measures were foolproof, Lu Yuan also began his foundation establishment through the way of the heavens. Lu Yuan's fire and wood dual spiritual roots had already been cultivated to perfection. The only thing he lacked was a suitable cultivation technique and a foundation establishment spiritual root. Therefore, what he needed to do now was very simple. He had to let the heavens bless him again. Similar to his previous attempts to achieve foundation establishment through the way of the heavens, Lu Yuan's process this time was bathing and changing clothes, praying to the heavens, burning incense and praying at a good, auspicious time. It could be said that no one was better than Lu Yuan at currying favor with the heavens. After showering and changing, Lu Yuan began a new prayer. Heavens, I, Lu Yuan, was previously blessed by you and was lucky enough to complete the foundation establishment through the way of the heavens. In the next few years, I will cultivate diligently and do good deeds. Cultivation is my duty, it's not worth mentioning. The good deeds I have done include, but are not limited to, saving a girl from the drunken cloud brothel who had lost her footing, helping a damsel in distress in the streets of the imperial capital, helping the Devil Slayer division kill devils and rid evil, unintentionally foiling the devil's plans, and so on. I'm not saying this to show off the results I've achieved over the years. I'm saying that it's because of your favor that I was able to do these difficult things. As my cultivation increases, I feel that my responsibility has grown greater as well. In order to help you build a better cultivation world, I hereby request for my third foundation establishment. Please bless me. After saying this, Lu Yuan inserted 3 incense sticks into the cauldron in front of him. A short while later, when the 3 incense sticks were successfully burnt out, Lu Yuan revealed a happy expression. 3 of the 4 steps of foundation establishment, which were bathing, changing clothes, praying to the heavens, and burning incense, had all been completed. Only the last step was left. When it was sunrise, Lu Yuan, who had been staring at the success rate of his foundation establishment, suddenly opened his eyes. Luck talent. Destined lucky star, activate. Foundation establishment. Fire and wood spiritual roots, foundation establishment success rate. 99%, there are 50 ways of heaven, 49 derived from the heavens and 1 from man. The heavens could only help him this much. The last 1% would depend on him. Foundation establishment, begin. Chapter 72. 72, Blood Warrior Monks Move Out 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 72. Blood Warrior Monks Move Out 1. Translator. Nyo I.bo Studio Editor. Nyo Iwo Studio Lu Yuan activated his luck talent. Destined Lucky Star. This time, the success rate of reaching the foundation establishment through the way of the heavens reached 99% at a terrifying speed. During his previous attempt, Lu Yuan had been buffed by luck and natural treasures. Only then did his success rate of reaching the foundation establishment through the way of the heavens reach a relatively good level. However, that was with the support of natural treasures. There were no natural treasures suitable for fire and wood spiritual roots now for Lu Yuan. Despite having no suitable natural treasures to increase the success rate of reaching the foundation establishment through the way of the heavens, using more luck could also achieve the same effect. 10,000 points of luck value were enough for Lu Yuan to reach the foundation establishment through the way of the heavens this time. He even had extra left over. With his previous experience in foundation establishment through the way of the heavens, Lu Yuan's current attempt was unusually smooth. A golden auspicious cloud soon appeared above his small courtyard. Previously, in order to ensure that his breakthrough would not be disturbed, Lu Yuan had cleared out the people around his small courtyard in advance. As an extraordinary force of the Qinyan sect in the mortal world, the Devil Slayers division naturally had many screening arrays to prevent enemies from probing the situation inside their base. In the end, this caused the news of Lu Yuan's breakthrough to be limited within the compound of the Devil Slayers division. Outsiders could not detect it. When the practitioners saw the auspicious cloud that appeared in the sky above Lu Yuan's courtyard, they were all shocked. However, as a group of unaffiliated cultivators, they were unaware of its significance. Therefore, although they felt that the phenomenon that appeared in Lu Yuan's courtyard was very shocking, they did not know what it represented. Not only did this cloud appear quickly, but it also disappeared very quickly. Before anyone could react, the auspicious cloud of the heavens had already disappeared from above Lu Yuan's courtyard. This also made Lu Yuan's identity feel more mysterious to everyone, and they revered him even more. 10 days later. Ding! Congratulations for successfully achieving foundation establishment through the way of the heavens. You have obtained the fire and wood foundation establishment's spiritual roots. Fire spiritual root aptitude plus 100, cultivation speed increased, wood spiritual root aptitude plus 100, cultivation speed increased, current spiritual root aptitude 1,100 points. Just as the system's voice announced this, Lu Yuan slowly opened his eyes. As the fire and wood dual spiritual roots achieved foundation establishment, their aptitude also reached 200 points respectively. In addition to the water, metal, and wind foundation establishment spiritual roots from before, Lu Yuan had a total of 5 foundation establishment spiritual roots. Metal, wood, water, fire, and wind. The total aptitude of his spiritual roots had reached an astonishing 1,100 points. Only his earth spiritual root had yet to achieve foundation establishment. This level of spiritual root aptitude also meant that the spiritual energy Lu Yuan absorbed every time he cultivated was 10 times more than what ordinary people could take in. Therefore, even if he cultivated multiple spiritual roots simultaneously, his cultivation speed would not be slower than that of a cultivator with a single spiritual root. After achieving foundation establishment with these 2 spiritual roots, a large amount of Lu Yuan's luck value was naturally consumed. Ding! As the host has received the heaven's blessing, 5,000 luck points have been consumed. Current luck value 5,052. He saw that this attempt had cost him 5,000 luck points. Although Lu Yuan had already expected this, his heart still ached at this loss. However, he quickly calmed down. After all, he didn't have the black tortoiseshell or the blood essence of a demon icing to assist him in reaching the foundation establishment stage this time. He would naturally need to use his luck value to compensate for this gap. As the saying goes, out with the old and in with the new. Luck value was something that was meant to be consumed. He usually only needed to maintain an elementary luck value to assist him in pill refinement. 5,000 points of luck value were more than enough. In any case, a trivial task like pill refinement did not require him to consume luck. With the completion of the foundation establishment, Lu Yuan's cultivation of the fire cicada 9 transformations was also more or less completed. The only thing left was to wait for Lu Yuan's own divine soul to reach the emptiness realm. Then, he would be able to use the fire cicada clone. After all, if his divine soul was too weak, Lu Yuan would not be able to split off enough of his divine soul to form a clone. The reason for this was that the fire cicada clone of the fire cicada 9 transformations consisted of two parts. One was the fire cicada body formed by fire and wood spiritual energy. The other was the fire cicada soul formed by a portion of Lu Yuan's soul. Moreover, because Lu Yuan had mastered the special divine ability, the green flame technique, the fire cicada clone he would have would be different from ordinary fire cicada clones. It would possess endless vitality, the characteristic of the green flame. In other words, the clone could persist for longer periods of time. This was definitely a good thing for Lu Yuan. After all, this also meant that his fire cicada clone would have more time to cultivate and increase its proficiency. According to Lu Yuan's own judgment, he estimated that he would need another month or so for his divine soul to reach the emptiness realm. Having an emptiness realm divine soul not only meant that he could have a fire cicada clone, but it also meant that it would be very difficult for cultivators of the same level to harm him using divine souls. Externally, he possessed the defense provided by the 9-guard tortoiseshell technique. Internally, an emptiness realm divine soul made up his powerful inner core. For escaping, he had the formless squall. He didn't lack medicinal pills either. It could be said that Lu Yuan had almost everything he wanted now. Unless he encountered a monster of the same level as him, he would be invincible. Chapter 73. 73, Blood Warrior Monks Move Out 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 73. Blood Warrior Monks Move Out 2. Translator. Nyo iwo Studio Editor. Nyo iwo Studio. The only thing he lacked now was magic items. After all, up until now, Lu Yuan had not come across any magic items suitable for him. His mixed cultivation played a part in this. He had not decided on magic items and magic instruments that were suitable for him. The only magic instrument that Lu Yuan had now was a mid-grade magic instrument, the Qingyun sword. The Qingyun sword was a magic instrument that every direct disciple of the Qingyun sect could obtain. Its specialty was that it had no specialty and was just average. However, Lu Yuan did not have time nor suitable materials for weapon refinement now. If he had such things, he would have prepared to start learning weapon refinement himself. Once he learned how to do so, he would be able to forge any magic instruments he wanted. However, magic instruments were not part of Lu Yuan's plans for the time being. He still prioritized his proficiency and cultivation. After thinking about what he was going to do next, Lu Yuan returned to his regular life. However, this time, he was no longer alone. He now had a maid, Su Wanner. He cultivated during the day, taught Su Wanner how to cultivate in the afternoon, and cultivated again by himself at night. His life was fulfilling. During this process, Su Wanner also displayed outstanding cultivation talent. After fusing with the Jile Buddha child, not only did her spiritual root aptitude increase, but her total aptitude of her water and Buddha spiritual roots also reached an astonishing 600 points. Her water attribute aptitude was now at 300 points while her Buddha wisdom root aptitude was at 300 points. Su Wanner had also absorbed all of Jile Buddha child's cultivation accumulated over the years. As a result, she was already a level 7 Qi cultivation cultivator. Moreover, she was a rare dual cultivation cultivator. Apart from that, Su Wanner seemed to have also absorbed the cultivation memories of the Buddhist monk stored in the Jile Buddha child. However, because Su Wanner's divine soul was not strong enough, she could only unlock a few memories. Nevertheless, she still had access to some of the cultivation techniques and divine abilities of the Jile sect. Among them was the Huanxi sect's unique cultivation technique, the Huanshi Prajna Sutra. Huanshi Prajna Sutra, description. Severs the 6 emotions, leaving only joy. Effect. Sacrificed the 6 emotions to cultivate joy alone in exchange for the ultimate Buddha nature. Can communicate with the Huanshi Jile Buddha and use various Buddhist divine abilities. Severing the 6 emotions referred to greatly suppressing the emotions of anger, worry, fear, love, hate, and desire. In the end, only joy remained. Cultivators who cultivated this technique showed very little emotions. Under normal circumstances, they were undoubtedly very consistent with the impression mortals had of eminent monks. In fact, although the monks of the Huanshi sect were called demonic monks by the righteous people, they rather resembled eminent monks when they were not taken over by their joy. Since the only emotion they were left with was joy, the flaws in their personalities were very obvious. There were many types of happiness, but most of the Huanshi sect monks chose lust as their expression of joy, which made them lecherous. Their lechery applied to both men and women. They retained lust because the flaw of being lecherous was an easy one to overcome. To help its members deal with their lust, the Huanshi sect also had a corresponding replenishing cultivation technique. Therefore, most of the cultivators of the Huanshi sect also cultivated this replenishing cultivation technique. After understanding the effects of the Huanshi Prajna Sutra, Lu Yuan suddenly felt that this cultivation technique could actually be combined with the blood-soul spell of the Shuang sect. This was because the biggest side effect of the blood-soul spell of the Shuang sect was that those who practiced it could not suppress their desire for blood. However, the Huanshi sect's Huanshi Prajna Sutra could do just that, it could sever their desire for blood. Coincidentally, Su Wanner's water and Buddha dual spiritual roots were very suitable for cultivating the blood-soul spell. This was because the blood-soul spell used the divine soul to control the blood and execute various divine abilities. In a sense, blood was also a type of water. Attribute divine ability. When Su Waners cultivated the blood-soul spell, she would absorb too many divine souls and this would cause impurities to appear in her own divine soul. Lu Yuan could use his divine soul pill refinement technique to baptize her soul to resolve this problem. It could be said that the Huanshi Prajna Sutra and the blood-soul spell were simply tailor-made for Su Wanner. Initially, due to Su Wanner starting cultivation later than her peers, even with her outstanding spiritual roots, she would not be able to catch up with cultivators of the same age. However, with the help of these two so-called demonic techniques, her cultivation speed might actually be on par with Lu Yuan. Although Lu Yuan had no use for the demons imprisoned in the B-grade prison, it was not the case for Su Wanner. Those demons were undoubtedly good nourishment for Su Wanner. Therefore, for a period of time, Su Wanner followed Lu Yuan into the dungeon of the Devil Slayers Division many times. The practitioners in the Devil Slayers Division gradually got used to seeing such a beautiful maid by Lu Yuan's side whenever he came. However, to their surprise, this maid was not a delicate flower like they had imagined, but a demoness who was growing at a rapid pace. Lu Yuan stayed in the Devil Slayers Division and spent 3 years peacefully. 3 years later, in the imperial palace of the Great Xia Kingdom. So, the director of the Devil Slayers Division, Green Flame, hasn't left the division even once in the past 3 years. Chenda's face was filled with disbelief when he listened to the report of the head eunuch Zhao Yue. Puzzled, Eunuch Zhao concluded, "Your Majesty, according to my observation, this new director Green Flame is really different from the previous directors." He added, "He doesn't seem to have any interest in the imperial city. Ever since he came here, he hasn't left the Devil Slayers Division. He has shown no intention of visiting the imperial advisor or the other aristocratic families. He chooses to only stay in the Devil Slayers Division. It seems like he intends to stay there until the end of his term." Upon hearing this, Chenda could not help but interrupt, "Doesn't he have any desires? Won't he be bored staying in the Devil Slayers Division?" The corners of Zhao Yue's mouth twitched subconsciously, as if there was something he didn't want to say. However, after hesitating for a moment, Zhao Yue reported, "Your Majesty, according to my investigation, this new director seems to have a hobby. Chinda's eyes lit up. What is it? He is lecherous. Lecherous. Hearing this, Chinda's expression turned ugly. He was lecherous. He had not left the Devil Slayer's division for 3 years, but he still managed to snatch away Chinda's reincarnated goddess. In an instant, Chinda felt as if he had been cheated on. Green Flame was going too far. Lo Chinda was the emperor of the mortal world after all. Even if Green Flame was an immortal from a celestial sect, he should not have overstepped his boundaries like that. After taking a few deep breaths, Chinda finally calmed down. Then, his gaze gradually turned gloomy. He declared, since he doesn't want to come out, I can only think of a way to make him come out. Eunuch Xiao, how is the refining of the blood warrior monks? Your Majesty, the 10 innate blood warrior monks have all been refined. We can send them out now. Chinda nodded and said, release these 10 blood warrior monks. He mumbled, 2 innate blood warrior monks are comparable to a gold-rank great practitioner. A calamity of this level appearing in all parts of the Great Xia Kingdom at the same time is definitely not something the 4 gold-rank great practitioners of the Devil Slayers division can handle. As long as I can make the Devil Slayers division feel pressured, then no matter how cowardly Green Flame is, he would have to emerge from his shell. I doubt that he can magically summon a few more innate stage martial artists or foundation establishment cultivators out of thin air to handle this mess. As soon as Green Flame leaves the Devil Slayers division, bring the goddess back to me. After all, I don't have much time left. Eunuch Xiao nodded. He looked at Chinda's graying sideburns and his freckled cheeks. The latter's lifespan was about to run out. The closer a person was to dying, the crazier they became. At this moment, Chinda couldn't care less about the safety of his subjects. His best solution was actually to wait until Lu Yuan's term of office to end. After the latter had left the Great Xia Kingdom, he could then find an opportunity to bring Su Waner out. However, Chinda clearly did not have enough time to wait for Lu Yuan to leave. As long as Lu Yuan was in the Devil Slayers division, Chinda would not be able to take Su Waner away. He had no choice but to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Given that he was about to die, he couldn't care less if the 10 blood warrior monks that he released to all parts of the Great Xia Kingdom caused a bloody storm. He was determined to obtain Su Waner's goddess body, even if it might cost the lives of countless commoners. What did the lives of a group of mortals count for? Chapter 74. 74, The Director's Order, Kill Without Mercy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 74. The Director's Order, Kill Without Mercy. Translator. Nyo I.bo Studio Editor. Nyo I.bo Studio at the border town, Gaoyang County, of the Great Xia Kingdom. The escort leader, Wu Sandao, said, Lord Zhuang, Gaoyang County is not far ahead. This is the only county city within 100 miles. It's already late, so we should rest in the county city for a night and continue to escort the goods tomorrow. Upon hearing the former's words, the wealthy merchant, Zhuang Ping, was about to say something when a voice suddenly came from the forest. If I were you, I would turn around and head back from where you came now. This is because Gaoyang County is no longer a place you can go to. Who are you? Wu Sandao instantly turned his head, then pulled out a blade engraved with a ghost head at his waist and assumed an attacking posture. He was not the only one. The 30 escorts of the entire caravan had also drawn their weapons and had serious looks on their faces. It was no wonder that they were so alarmed. After all, it was not a good thing to suddenly meet a stranger in the middle of the night in the wilderness. Not to mention that they were escorts who were transporting goods. They were already tense to begin with. They were always on guard against mountain bandits, demons, and ghosts that could appear at any time. That's right, as escorts who traveled all year round, although they did not have much cultivation, their horizons were not something that ordinary people could compare to. They had also encountered demons and ghosts. However, As a country of the mortal world controlled by the Qinyan sect, the Great Xia Kingdom only had small demons within its territory. It was not that there were no great demons, but there were definitely not many of them. Once these great demons were discovered by the people of the Devil Slayers division, their fate would often be very miserable. The great demons imprisoned in the dungeon of the Devil Slayers division were prime examples. Although some of the small demons were not something ordinary people could deal with, for the escorts who were full of blood qi, they were not an insurmountable problem. Due to the darkness of the night, the escorts were temporarily unable to figure out what was the source of the voice they heard. Although the language that person spoke was the official language of the Great Xia Kingdom, being able to speak meant nothing. Some demons could speak too. Finally, under the anxious gazes of the escorts, a 2-meter-tall figure slowly emerged from the shadows. The other party wore a golden mask, and on it was carved a ferocious-looking lion-ape. Escort leader Wu Sandao seemed to recall something when he saw the black robe worn by the other party. In an astonished voice, he exclaimed, "You're a devil-slaying practitioner." Hearing that the other party was a devil-slaying practitioner, the escorts immediately relaxed. Although ordinary people feared the devil-slaying practitioners like they feared a fierce tiger, the escorts worshipped them. This was because most escorts who traveled all year round had been saved by devil-slaying practitioners before when encountering demons and monsters. Therefore, when they saw the devil-slaying practitioner, it was as if they were looking at their savior. When the escorts saw the golden mask of the lion-ape, they understood that this practitioner was no ordinary practitioner. Therefore, their attitude towards him became even more respectful. As for whether the lion-ape practitioner was faking their identity, they had no doubts about it. This was because impersonating a practitioner in the Great Xia Kingdom was a capital offense. Once someone was discovered doing so, they would have to leave the kingdom. Otherwise, what awaited them was the endless pursuit of the Devil Slayers division. After their initial excitement, the escorts' hearts became heavy. Wu Sandao walked up to the lion-ape practitioner and asked tentatively, "Sir, if I may ask, what has happened in Gaoyang County?" Just as the lion-ape practitioner looked at him and was about to reply, the former suddenly turned his head and looked into the distance, as if he had sensed something in the shadows. A voice said, "Kakik. I didn't expect that a Devil Slayers division's gold-rank great practitioner would come." Another voice replied, "I told you we shouldn't have eaten those 2 silver-rank practitioners. Haven't we just provoked those we shouldn't have provoked? Hey, how dare you criticize me? You're talking as if you weren't there when we ate those 2 silver-rank practitioners." Under the lion-ape practitioner's calm gaze, 2 burly figures slowly emerged from the shadows. They were half-human and half-demon. Not only were they 3 meters tall, but they also had shiny bald heads. They looked like monks yet did not resemble monks at the same time. They were very strange. In addition, there were centipede-like blood-colored patterns on their skin. Not only did the 2 of them look very strange, but evil auras emanated from their entire beings. These 2 were the innate monsters that Chenda had released, the Blood Warrior monks. The 2 Blood Warrior monks finally stopped 100 meters away from the lion-ape practitioner and did not continue approaching him. Meanwhile, the escorts around the lion-ape practitioner retreated in fear when they saw the 2 Blood Warrior monks. The lion-ape practitioner looked at the 2 of them and said indifferently, "Are you 2 the demons that massacred all the citizens of Gaoyang County?" After hearing the lion-ape practitioner's words, the 2 Blood Warrior monks looked at each other and revealed their ferocious bloody teeth as they laughed proudly. "If you're talking about those crying mortals, then yes, that was our doing. However, Lord Gold-rank, you're wrong about one thing. We did not just eat the people of Gaoyang County. The 2 of us ate everyone within 100 miles of the county. So, what of it? What are you going to do to the 2 of us?" Looking at their unrestrained appearances, the lion-ape practitioner remained unperturbed. However, his body had already begun to emit a faint surge of inborn vitality. A majestic power of blood chi was emitted along with his inborn vitality. All of a sudden, the escorts behind seemed to see an illusion of a huge white lion-ape appear behind the gold-rank lion-ape practitioner. At this moment, he was like a real lion-ape that had emerged from the forest. His aura was astonishing. Looking at the unscrupulous blood warrior monks, the lion-ape practitioner's tone was filled with disgust as he said, "You're neither human nor ghost. You don't have much ability, but you are quite capable at running your mouth." Hearing the lion-ape practitioner's mockery, one of the blood warrior monks suddenly laughed maniacally. Kakik, he looked at the lion-ape practitioner, who had become serious, and sneered, "You are indeed an innate stage martial artist. The density of your blood chi and the richness of your inborn vitality are not something that ordinary martial artists can compare to. However, if you are alone, how are you going to deal with the two of us, as well as these thousands of zombies?" As soon as he finished speaking, a dense rustling sound came from the surrounding forest. In an instant, hundreds of zombies crawled out of the ground. They looked withered, their skin rotten. Their tattered clothes were stained with blood and mud. Their eyes were bloodshot as they stared at the lion-ape practitioner and the escorts as if they were looking at a group of delicious prey. The escorts had never expected that they would be standing over a pile of zombies if they advanced another 100 meters. At the thought of this, all of them began to feel afraid. The current situation was undoubtedly not something that they, the escorts, could resolve. If they wanted to survive, they could only place their hopes on the devil-slaying practitioner in front of them. Before them were thousands of zombies that were comparable to level 1 chi cultivation stage cultivators and 2 innate stage monsters. No matter how one looked at it, the lion-ape practitioner was at a disadvantage here. However, the two blood warrior monks did not expect the lion-ape practitioner to suddenly laugh when faced with such a dire situation. He looked at the two blood warrior monks and said with a strange expression, "I think the two of you seem to have misunderstood something. When did I say that I was alone?" The two blood warrior monks were stunned. Bang! After a firework exploded in the air, a large number of devil-slaying practitioners slowly walked out of the surrounding forest. These devil-slaying practitioners were not of high grade. Most of them were iron or bronze rank, and there were only 3 silver rank practitioners. Even though their grades were low, their numbers were greater. Including the gold rank great practitioner, there were a total of 100 practitioners. Usually, only 2 or 3 bronze rank practitioners would be dispatched for a devil-slaying mission. Now, hundreds of devil-slaying practitioners were dispatched at once, including a gold rank great practitioner leading the way. Ever since the Great Xia Kingdom was founded, such a scene had only appeared a few times. Looking at the army of practitioners, one of the blood warrior monks said in disbelief, "That's impossible. We didn't even reveal our cultivation before. Why would the Devil Slayers division send so many people at once?" In response, the lion-ape practitioner smiled brightly. However, his smile was a smile of mockery. "If you really want to know why, then you should ask the new director. Before I came here, he specifically reminded me." What were his exact words again? Now that I think about it, the director said that Gaoyang County is located at the border of the Great Xia Kingdom, and the surrounding environment is complicated. To be able to kill 2 silver rank practitioners in such a place, our enemies are surely not ordinary people. It's not safe to only send out 1 gold rank great practitioner, so he ordered me to bring along a few hundred people with me. Bring along a few hundred people. The two blood warrior monks were dumbfounded. Why the F***ck would he casually bring a few hundred people along with him? Did the Devil Slayers division not have a budget to follow? How could they send out so many people at once? Did they empty out their headquarters? The lion-ape practitioner seemed to have read the blood warrior monks' minds. He explained, "Actually, when the director asked me to bring along a few hundred people, I had the same thoughts as you. I felt that it was unnecessary. But now, It seems that the director has foresight. I really regret not listening to him. I should have brought a few hundred more. He continued, but it's fine. Our current numbers should be enough to deal with you demons. Then, he instructed, everyone, listen up. The men responded in unison, your orders, sir. Director Green Flame has ordered that anyone who harms the people and devours mortals should be killed without mercy. Yes, sir. Chapter 75. 75. What does a clone wearing female clothes have to do with the main body? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 75. What does a clone wearing female clothes have to do with the main body? Translator. Nyo.bo Studio Editor. Nyo.bo Studio. There was a gold.rank great practitioner, 3 silver.rank practitioners, and over 100 bronze.rank and metal.rank practitioners. Such a line. Up was naturally not something that 2 mere innate stage martial artists and a group of zombies could withstand. Zombies might be terrifying to ordinary people, but to the practitioners, they were just like any other opponent. After all, monsters like zombies were the most common opponents that practitioners encountered. In short, the practitioners were professionals when it came to dealing with zombies. The lion.ape practitioner waved his hand in front of the 2 horrified blood warrior monks. The next moment, hundreds of practitioners instantly attacked. The zombies did not sit still and wait for death. They rushed towards the practitioners as well. Zombies were not afraid of pain or death, and their bodies were comparable to a martial artist who had practiced martial arts for 7 or 8 years. However, there was a fatal flaw with zombies. They had no intelligence. Zombies, who only knew how to kill and had no intelligence, were at most a large group of wild beasts. They would not pose too much of a threat to the practitioners. The only ones who could pose a threat to the latter were the 2 blood warrior monks. However, with the lion.ape practitioner around, the 2 blood warrior monks would have a hard time protecting themselves, let alone attacking the other practitioners. In the blood warrior monks' original plan, they would first use the zombies to deplete the lion.ape practitioner's blood chi and inborn vitality, and then fight him in a round-robin battle. Unfortunately, this plan had undoubtedly failed. Without the thousands of zombies holding him back, the 2 blood warrior monks who had just broken through to the innate stage were no match for the lion.ape practitioner who was a veteran innate stage martial artist. Soon, the 2 of them began to fight while retreating, trying to escape from here. However, the lion.ape practitioner did not give the 2 of them a chance to escape. Relying on his outstanding physical fitness and inborn vitality, he kept them where they stood. Every time they tried to escape, the lion.ape practitioner would attack them crazily, not giving them a chance to escape at all. The 2 blood warrior monks watched in despair as the zombies around them were gradually disposed of by the practitioners. After all the zombies were eliminated, not a single practitioner had been killed. Only one unlucky metal.rank practitioner was seriously injured. He fell over because he ran too fast in the process of chasing the enemy and hit his head on a rock. He was the only practitioner who was seriously injured. Without the zombie horde, the 2 blood warrior monks found themselves in a dire situation. In terms of strength, the hundreds of ordinary practitioners around them could not threaten them at all. However, these practitioners did not need to defeat these 2 blood warrior monks either. Their role was only to restrain the 2 of them and not let them escape. Unfortunately for the blood warrior monks, they were not proper innate stage martial artists. They could not display the strength of innate stage martial artists in battle. Otherwise, even if they were not a match for the lion.ape practitioner, it would not be a problem for them to escape from the latter. An impostor would always be an impostor. They had no substance to speak of. In the end, under the siege of the gold rank lion.ape practitioner and the other practitioners, one of the 2 blood warrior monks was killed while the other was seriously injured. The severely injured blood warrior monk was captured by the lion.ape practitioner. The latter personally watched over him as he was transported back to the Devil Slayer's division. Similar scenes occurred in other parts of the Great Xia Kingdom. After all, the sudden appearance of the Blood Warrior monks this time wasn't limited to just one location. They appeared all over the Great Xia Kingdom like bamboo shoots after the rain. It was very strange. In response, all the practitioners in the Devil Slayer's division were mobilized. Even the 4 gold-rank great practitioners of the division were dispatched. Because of this, the entire Devil Slayer's division fell into an unprecedented state of weakness. They were seriously short of manpower. In the headquarters of the Devil Slayer's division. Young Master, the 4 gold-rank great practitioners have already gone to their respective locations. Before they left, they took most of the practitioners with them. Are you sure you don't want a gold-rank great practitioner stationed here? Lu Yuan, who was drinking tea in the courtyard, heard Su Wanner's slightly worried words and said with a smile, "Why? Are you worried that someone will come to our Devil Slayer's division at this time to cause trouble?" She nodded. After 3 years of Lu Yuan's training, the current Su Wanner was no longer the naive and innocent girl from back then. She understood some basic human relationships. Moreover, in the past few months, Lu Yuan had continuously instilled in her the concept of cultivating steadily. He advised her to not make a move hastily and be sure to eliminate the problem at the source. As a result, the current Su Wanner had already grasped the essence of the first level of Lu Yuan's steadiness. Therefore, when she saw the empty headquarters, she was shocked and felt that such an arrangement was not in line with Lu Yuan's usual steady personality. She wondered whether Lu Yuan had some other plans that she did not know about. Lu Yuan did not choose to answer Su Wanner's doubts directly. He took a sip of the hot tea and said with a smile, "Wanner, you should cultivate in seclusion in the dungeon for a period of time. Without my orders, don't come out." He continued, "After all, it won't be long before we have guests over." Hearing this, Su Wanner revealed an expression of realization. "I understand," she said obediently. The young master was indeed scheming something. However, she did not know who his unlucky victim was. "All right, you can go over now. It just so happens that you have also reached the critical period of establishing your foundation. The dungeon is a dangerous place for others, but for you, it is a precious place for cultivation. When you are about to break through, I will cleanse your divine soul and help you complete your foundation establishment." When she heard Lu Yuan mention divine soul cleansing, Su Wanner's face immediately turned red. It was as if this cleansing of the divine soul was something indecent. In reality, the cleansing of the divine soul was a proper procedure, but Lu Yuan's cleansing method was a little improper. Every time Lu Yuan helped her cleanse her divine soul, his hands would always touch many parts of her body. He would even touch some sensitive spots. Lu Yuan's explanation for this was that he was doing this to better remove the spiritual impurities from her divine soul. He had no other intentions. Su Wanner felt that Lu Yuan was lying to her, but she had no proof. Nevertheless, she did not dislike the so-called divine soul cleansing. After Su Wanner left, a figure suddenly walked out of the room behind Lu Yuan. This figure was dressed exactly like Su Wanner. However, compared to Su Wanner, this figure's temperament and expression was even colder. They were like a human-shaped ice mountain. This icy Su Wanner was naturally not Su Wanner herself, but Lu Yuan's clone. This clone of his was just cross-dressing. It wasn't because Lu Yuan had some special fetish. He just needed to use the cross-dressing clone in his next plan. He looked at the cross-dressing clone that had no flaws in terms of divine soul fluctuations or appearance. Lu Yuan muttered to himself, "In the journey to the west, Monkey Sun pretended to be a woman in Gao Lao Zhuang. Today, in the Devil Slayer's division, my clone will pretend to be a woman." Even Zhu Beiji fell for Monkey Sun's disguise. Chenda isn't smarter than Zhu Beiji, is he? Thinking of this, Lu Yuan looked at his clone dressed in female clothes and could not help but laugh. The stage had already been set. He was just waiting for the main leads to appear. Lu Yuan did not feel any shame at all to have his clone dress up as a woman. It was as though he had done this before. After all, what the clone did had nothing to do with his main body. Chapter 76. 76. Someone from the Imperial Palace. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 76. Someone from the Imperial Palace. Translator. Nyo-i.bo Studio Editor. Nyo-i.bo Studio. Regarding the blood corpses that were wreaking havoc in the Great Xia Kingdom, Lu Yuan had received a report saying that there were remnants of the Giles sect who had released the blood warrior monks to sow chaos. Although this statement was very reliable and all the signs pointed to the Giles sect, Lu Yuan still had some lingering doubts. From Lu Yuan's point of view, it was most likely true that the Giles sect were the culprits behind this. However, he was intrigued by who these remnants of the Giles sect were. Ever since he knew that Chinda might be related to the Giles sect, Lu Yuan had already considered Chinda a member of the sect. Therefore, even though the sudden appearance of the bloody corpses seemed to be caused by the Giles sect, Lu Yuan felt that this was most likely Emperor Chinda's doing. After all, before any faction made a move, they would definitely consider whether it would benefit them or not. Although the conflict between the righteous and evil paths was getting more and more intense, this battle had yet to spread to the level of mortals. Most of the battles were still between cultivators. Apart from causing some chaos in the Great Xia Kingdom, these bloody corpses would not affect the cultivators at all. Since the bloody corpses would not affect the cultivators, releasing them would not benefit the Giles sect much. Why would the latter do something that would not benefit them? The only person who would benefit from this chaos that Lu Yuan could think of was undoubtedly Emperor Chinda. This was because if the Great Xia Kingdom was in chaos, the Devil Slayers division would definitely have to expend a lot of energy to maintain order. While the Devil Slayers division was focused on the bloody corpses, Chinda would have a chance to take the statue of the Gile Buddha child and Su Waner out from their headquarters. As for why he wanted to do so, Lu Yuan had some inkling. Lu Yuan wasn't surprised. These were the crazy actions of a person seeking immortality. Nevertheless, even though he had already concluded that all of this was plotted by Chinda, as a steady person, Lu Yuan naturally did not rule out the possibility that it was really the Giles sect who was causing trouble. Although this possibility was very small, it still existed. If this incident was really caused by the Giles sect, then they must have a bigger goal in mind. Perhaps they wanted to use the blood corpses to make the people of the Great Xia Kingdom doubt the imperial court. The Great Xia Kingdom was one of the countries closest to the Devil's territories. Once a mortal's faith in the country was shaken, then the Great Xia Kingdom would also wane. When the Great Xia Kingdom was in turmoil, the mortal countries controlled by the devilish way would have a chance to make a move on them. Therefore, in order to find out whether the blood corpses were unleashed by Chinda or the Giles sect, Lu Yuan decided to observe for a while longer. In the meantime, he would make some preparations to test the waters. Lu Yuan used his clone to pretend to be Su Waner in order to bait out the true culprit. He wanted to see if Chinda would lose his patience and attack at this opportune moment. After all, if Lu Yuan was away, there would be no Foundation establishment cultivators left in the headquarters of the Devil Slayers division, and it would be the best moment for Chinda to strike. As for whether the bait he had set up would be seen through by Chinda, Lu Yuan was not worried at all. Because after such a long period of divine soul cleansing, Lu Yuan was already very familiar with Su Waner's divine soul fluctuations. He was almost able to emulate them perfectly. The reason why Lu Yuan could do this was related to one of his skills. This skill was the divine soul disguise technique. Divine soul disguise, effect. Able to simulate the divine soul fluctuations of others, making it difficult for outsiders to tell the difference. Generally speaking, cultivators identified each other from the fluctuations of their divine souls. Although everyone's divine souls looked similar, there were some unique details in each fluctuation. The principle was similar to a person's fingerprint. All were unique. The function of the divine soul disguise technique was to disguise the fluctuations of the divine soul. Although he couldn't simulate all of Su Wanner's divine soul fluctuations, he could still imitate most of them. Unless a core formation stage veteran personally checked, Lu Yuan was confident that his clone would definitely not be seen through by others. He would use the clone as bait and infiltrate the enemy's base. This was one of Lu Yuan's plans. He would cheat Chinda with a fake goddess. Not long after Lu Yuan sent Su Wanner to the dungeon, someone arrived at the Devil Slayer's division almost on cue. Lord Green Flame, something has happened to His Majesty. Lu Yuan looked at eunuch Zhao Yuwei standing before him and tried his best not to laugh out loud. Lu Yuan chided, if something happened to Chinda, why aren't you finding a solution? Why did you come to the Devil Slayer's division? Didn't I say that unrelated people are not allowed to enter? Facing the domineering Lu Yuan, Zhao Yuwei withstood the pressure and said in an urgent tone, Lord Green Flame, if it was just an ordinary matter, I naturally wouldn't dare to come to the Devil Slayer's division to disturb you. However, this time, the situation is very serious. It seems that there are demons causing trouble in the palace. Even His Majesty has fallen for their schemes. There are demons causing trouble in the palace. Upon hearing this, Lu Yuan was really a little surprised. He then asked curiously, if I remember correctly, the Imperial Advisor stays in the palace all year round. With the Imperial Advisor's cultivation at the pseudo-core stage, what kind of demon could harm the Emperor under his watch? Lord Director, you may not know, but the Imperial Advisor left the palace a few days ago due to some matters, Eunuch Zhao explained. Presumably, the demons used this opportunity to sneak into the palace and cause trouble. The servants in the palace are helpless against such entities, so I can only come to the Devil Slayer's division for help. Lord Green Flame, please come to the Imperial Palace as soon as possible. Otherwise, if anything happens to His Majesty, I will pay for it with my life. Lu Yuan looked at Eunuch Zhao's dramatic expression. It almost appeared as though the latter wasn't lying. A moment later, Lu Yuan calmly said, lead the way. Now that the 4 gold rank great practitioners are not around, I can only take action personally. Thank you, Director. Eunuch Zhao's face lit up. Lu Yuan brought a few silver rank practitioners and headed to the palace with Eunuch Zhao. Not long after Lu Yuan left the Devil Slayer's division, a group of people quietly came to the front gate. Judging from their attire, they seemed to be devil slaying practitioners from other places. There weren't many of them, only 10 of them. Stop. Which division are you from? What are you doing at the headquarters? Just as this group of foreign practitioners was about to enter the Devil Slayer's division, the practitioners guarding the entrance of the headquarters suddenly stopped them. The foreign practitioners looked at each other, and then a middle-aged practitioner walked forward. Fellow colleagues, we are devil slaying practitioners who were previously guarding Hensey County. We are here under orders to escort a demon to the headquarters dungeon. When they heard this, the 2 practitioners at the gate did not believe him immediately. Instead, one of them said seriously, show me your identity cards for verification. All right. The 10 foreign practitioners did not make a fuss and took out their waste tokens one after another. The waste token of a devil slaying practitioner consisted of a parent token and a sub-token. The parent tokens were left in the headquarters and the sub-tokens were carried by the devil slaying practitioners. Only when the soul fluctuations in the parent token matched the soul fluctuations in the sub-token could the identity of a practitioner be verified. Once the practitioner died, the soul fluctuations in the parent token would also disappear. Considering that people might pretend to be a practitioner, headquarters also needed to check the person's divine soul during the identity check. The identity check process wasn't troublesome. They just had to activate their sub-tokens. This was because only when one's divine soul was consistent with the soul fluctuations stored in the sub-token could one activate it to emit a specific light. As a result, it was almost impossible for anyone to impersonate a practitioner of the Devil Slayers division. The IO foreign practitioners all passed the verification. This also made the 2 practitioners at the gate relax. Looking at the 10 people at the gate, the practitioner who had stopped them just now smiled and said, "You have worked hard, colleagues. This identity verification is a necessary process for our division. Please don't take offense. Come on in." "It's fine," the foreign practitioner said with a smile. Then, led by the practitioner at the gate, the foreign practitioners entered the Devil Slayers division. Chapter 77. 77, The Mole. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 77. The Mole Translator. Nyo-iwo Studio Editor. Nyo-iwo Studio. On the way to the dungeon, the practitioner from the headquarters started chatting with the foreign practitioners. "Looking at your group, it must not have been an easy journey, right?" Lu Ming, the practitioner from the branch division, replied with a smile, "That's right. How can life in the branch division be compared to that of staying in headquarters? The few of us only had the chance to come to the headquarters because the demon we escorted this time was really powerful. No wonder. Demons are usually escorted by groups of 3 practitioners. However, this time, a total of 10 of you have been sent over. Among your team, there are 2 silver rank leaders." The practitioner from the headquarters continued, "These silver rank practitioners are already at the level of a branch director. Their positions are only slightly lower than the gold ranked great practitioners in headquarters. For you to treat this mission so seriously, the demon must not be an ordinary one, right?" "Yes." Lu Ming nodded and said, "The demon we're holding in custody this time is one of the blood warrior monks who caused a commotion in the Great Xia Kingdom. If not for gold rank Lord Shang Yun, we wouldn't have been able to catch him at all." "Oh. I heard that these guys are comparable to innate stage martial artists. Can you guys handle him with just a few of you?" Lu Ming looked at the iron cage covered by a black cloth behind him and said with a smile, "We naturally can't, but Lord Shang Yun did all the hard work for us." He continued explaining, "Lord Shang Yun has already sealed this vile creature's inborn vitality. Other than having a slightly stronger body, it's no different from an ordinary demon now. Therefore, the few of us are enough to escort him." "I see." After the small talk, the practitioner from the headquarters quickly brought them to the dungeon. After a simple exchange, the group completed the handover. Not long after, the blood warrior monk was locked up in the A-grade prison by a few practitioners in the dungeon. Everything went surprisingly smoothly. The practitioner from the headquarters suggested, "My colleagues, do you want to go out for a drink after work? Our director said that work is important, but rest is also necessary. I have to say, ever since the arrival of the new director, Lord Green Flame, our lives have indeed improved a lot. Not only do I not have to be trapped in the Devil Slayers division every day, but I can also get some good gifts every holiday. In the words of the director, this is called employee welfare. The purpose is to let us feel that the Devil Slayers division values us." These words stunned Lu Ming. He looked at the practitioner from the headquarters who had a smiling look of admiration on his face. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. This was not his impression of headquarters. It had been more than 10 years since he was transferred from headquarters to the branch division. The headquarters of the Devil Slayers division was still a very cold and desolate place more than 10 years ago. The practitioners who lived here were just dogs kept by the Celestial Sect. Every Celestial Sect disciple who was sent here was indifferent to everyone else. When necessary, they would even be used as cannon fodder to test the strength of the demons. They were no different from livestock. However, this new director seemed to be completely different from the previous directors. The new director showed care to the employees and made them feel as though the Devil Slayers division placed importance on them. If only he had such a superior back then. Pondering this, Lu Ming trailed off for a bit. "Brother Lu." "Ah." Lu Ming, who came back to his senses, looked at the practitioner from the headquarters who was looking at him with a puzzled expression. He hurriedly smiled and said, "I'm sorry. I was a little lost in thought just now. That new director, is he really as good as you say? Could all of this be an act?" Lu Ming's half-joking words seemed to have prod a hornet's nest. The practitioner from the headquarters, who had been smiling at him earlier, immediately revealed an unhappy expression. He warned, "My colleague, you can't just say anything that is on your mind. We all know what kind of person Director Green Flame is. If you dare to say another word of disrespect about him, then even if you are also a practitioner, we will not sit idly by." Looking at the sudden change in attitude of the practitioner from the headquarters, Lu Ming knew that he had said something wrong. "Fellow colleague, please don't get angry at me. This is my first time here, so there are many things I don't know. I won't make the same mistake again." The practitioner from the headquarters glared at him and said, "It best be so." After saying this, the practitioner turned around and left. He was not as enthusiastic as he was when he wanted to drink with Lu Ming just now. It was apparent how much Lu Ming's slandering of Lu Yuan had lowered the practitioner's impression of the former. Lu Ming did not expect this outcome either. Due to this small episode, Lu Ming and the others could only go to the rest area in the headquarters alone. Fortunately, he was very familiar with the layout of the headquarters. After all, he had been a practitioner for 30 years, and he had been stationed at the headquarters for more than 10 years. After entering a small courtyard, Lu Ming ordered someone to close the door. The 10 of them gathered in the room, and the atmosphere became very tense, as if something was brewing. "Practitioner Lu, when do we make our move?" After a moment of silence, Lu Ming raised his head and replied, "We'll wait for the signal from the palace. For now, we still don't know if the new director has been dragged into the palace. Once the other party learns about the situation in the Devil Slayers division, they might return immediately. We have no chance of winning against a Foundation establishment cultivator from a celestial sect." The others nodded, and the room quickly fell silent again. After about 5 minutes, a copper bell on Lu Ming's waist suddenly began to shake violently. The crisp sound of the copper bell echoed in the room. The few people who had been silent in the room suddenly stood up. "Everyone, the time has come. As long as we can complete His Majesty's mission, we will have served our country well. This is Great Xia. It's our motherland after all. It is not a place where immortals can trample on as they please. Those immortals treat us as ants. We'll let them know that even if we're ants, we can still bite through a pillar. Let's move." "Yes." In the darkness, the 10 of them quietly left the courtyard. The place they were heading to was the courtyard where Lu Yuan lived. As Lu Yuan was currently in the palace, there was no one else in the courtyard other than his clone. Naturally, Lu Ming and the others did not know this. They still thought that Su Waner was the only one in Lu Yuan's courtyard. Their targets were Su Waner and the Buddha child statue that Lu Yuan had taken away. After leaving the room, the few of them quickly split up. A group of people went to Lu Yuan's courtyard while the other group went to Lu Yuan's study. They were well coordinated. It was obvious that a mole had informed them of the locations of their targets in advance. After Lu Yuan brought the Buddha child statue back, it had been placed on the table in the study and had not been moved. Practitioners from outside the headquarters would have never known the exact location of the Buddha child statue. Under the bright moonlight, the two groups of people actually arrived at the study room and Lu Yuan's courtyard unhindered. They did not encounter any patrolling practitioner along the way. The entire process was surprisingly smooth. Things going so well gave Lu Ming a bad feeling. Since when was it so easy for someone to enter such a core area of the heavily guarded Devil Slayers Division's headquarters? However, they had no choice but to continue. Not long after, Lu Ming and 4 other practitioners arrived at Lu Yuan's courtyard and carefully observed from the outside. Although Lu Yuan had already gone to the palace, the courtyard of a Foundation establishment cultivator was not a place that ordinary people could enter. They had to be extremely careful if they wanted to take Su Wanner away silently. Chapter 78. 78. High-end hunters often appear as prey. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 78. High-end hunters often appear as prey. Translator. Nyo-iwo Studio Editor. Nyo-iwo Studio. Lu Ming knew that Lu Yuan was currently in the palace and was not in contact with the happenings in the headquarters, so it was absolutely impossible for him to appear in the Devil Slayers division. Nevertheless, Lu Ming and the others could not help but be so nervous that their foreheads were sweating. After all, as cultivators, no one knew better than them the significance of being a Foundation establishment cultivator from a celestial sect. In the eyes of ordinary people, practitioners were extraordinary people who mastered miraculous techniques. However, only they themselves knew that in the eyes of those who cultivated celestial cultivation, unaffiliated cultivators like them were insignificant. At the same cultivation level, the disciples of the celestial sects not only had more complete orthodoxies, but they also had more powerful divine abilities. Therefore, it was not a problem for a celestial sect disciple to defeat 3 or 4 unaffiliated cultivators at the same cultivation level. As cultivators of the celestial sects, other than having powerful cultivation bases and many techniques, they were also very protective of their residences. Strictly speaking, this courtyard was just Lu Yuan's foothold in the mortal world. However, it was possible that he had arranged some special setups in this courtyard. It was precisely because of this that Lu Ming had specially arranged for 2 array masters for his group. Their goal was simple. They needed to kidnap Su Wanner and retrieve the Jile Buddha child statue without alerting the people in headquarters. In order to complete this mission, they had already made sufficient preparations. Just as they arrived at Lu Yuan's courtyard and were preparing to observe for a while, they were surprised to find that there were no patrols around. Although they didn't understand why this was the case, it was convenient for their plan. "Old Wu, how's your preparation for the array coming along?" An old man who had been fiddling with the ground for a long time raised his head. He grinned, revealing his yellow teeth, and said confidently, "Don't worry, I've already arranged everything. With the magic instrument given by His Majesty, I'm confident that I can completely cover up all movements, even that of a Foundation establishment cultivator. You can go in without worry." Hearing this, the remaining 4 people nodded. After taking a deep breath, they walked into the ordinary courtyard in front of them. Just as they stepped through the entrance, an illusory light silently enveloped the entire courtyard, and even separated it from the other houses. The source of the light was the compass in Practitioner Wu's hand. It was obvious that this compass was a magic instrument specially used to set up array formations. It was no wonder that he, a level 8 Qi cultivation cultivator, had the confidence to say that he could conceal the spiritual energy fluctuations of the Foundation establishment cultivator. The moment they entered the courtyard, Lu Yuan's clone sensed their arrival. The clone disguised as Su Wanner slowly opened his eyes and sat up. He analyzed, 1 Foundation establishment cultivator, 3 level 7 and 8 Qi cultivation cultivators, and an array master. It seems that they came prepared. From their auras, these people don't seem to have traces of devilish cultivation techniques. They are most likely proper unaffiliated cultivators of the Great Xia Kingdom. If these guys had the aura of the devilish way on them, it would have been impossible for them to enter the headquarters. Lu Yuan got up and subconsciously combed his hair behind his ears. His soft black hair flowed down his back and draped naturally on his back. It was just a normal action, but it gave off an indescribable charm. Lu Yuan sensed that the few of them were carefully exploring the house. He muttered to himself, "I should give these guys some hardships. Otherwise, if everything goes too smoothly, they might get suspicious. However, I don't want them to suffer too much. If they can't complete the mission, my arrangements will have been in vain." Fortunately, I was prepared and shut down the defensive array in the courtyard in advance. I even withdrew the green flame mines and puppets. Otherwise, these strays wouldn't have made it past the courtyard alive, let alone reach the main house. After confirming that the arrays he left in the courtyard would not cause these people to fail, he started to think about the persona that he was going to play. Should he play the role of a damsel in distress screaming, "Stay away from me"? Or should he play the role of a righteous woman who would threaten suicide if they approached her? Forget it, these were all classic tropes from Japanese movies. These personas were too troublesome to play. He'd better play the role of a meek woman who was woken up by a thief in her sleep. It was late at night, and there were 5 strangers and a sleeping woman. He had decided. This was the persona that he was going to play. After making up his mind, Lu Yuan lay on Su Wan'er's bed and pretended to sleep. Just as Lu Yuan used his spiritual sense to observe Lu Ming and the others, they finally encountered their first problem. Boom! With an explosion, a practitioner stepped on a green flame pill. Terrifying green flames erupted in an instant, setting the practitioner aflame. Be careful. Lu Ming reacted quickly and immediately cast a divine ability to extinguish the green flames on the fellow's body in the shortest time possible. Thankfully, the power of these green flames was not strong. Their power was around level 5 of the Qi cultivation stage and no one was controlling them. Otherwise, this practitioner would not have escaped death with just burns. He might have been roasted to perfection on the spot. Even so, the sudden appearance of the green flames still frightened the practitioner. Looking at the empty courtyard in front of him, he did not dare to take another step forward. When the other practitioners saw this, their expressions turned ugly. This was because apart from Lu Ming, who had foundation establishment stage cultivation, the rest were only at the Qi cultivation stage. The green flames were not a threat to Lu Ming, but they were to the others. Lu Ming looked at the other practitioners who did not dare to move forward and said in a low voice, "Everyone, get moving. Old Wu has specially used a magic array to cut off the connection between the main house and the courtyard, so the sound will not spread into the house. However, the flames here might have startled the target. If we act fast to catch her, we'll all die here." Hearing this, everyone came back to their senses. Then, they took a deep breath and used all kinds of defensive methods as they advanced. Lu Yuan had already removed most of the green flame pills in advance. He only left behind some less powerful traps. Therefore, after a series of explosions, the practitioners managed to safely reach the main house. Just as they arrived at the main house, a new threat appeared. A few spider puppets crawling on the ceiling suddenly attacked them. Without exception, these spider puppets were all around level 5 of the Qi cultivation stage. Fortunately, although the green flames spat out by these spider puppets were troublesome, they were just a group of inanimate objects. With the combined efforts of the practitioners, they quickly dealt with these puppets. By the time everything returned to normal, Lu Ming and the others were already in a sorry state. Among them, Lu Ming was still in good condition. There were no obvious injuries on his body. However, the rest were in a miserable state. Not only were they covered in dust, but some of them even had serious burns on their bodies. Nevertheless, they still made it to the main house alive. At this moment, a practitioner lamented with lingering fear, "Is this the power of a foundation establishment cultivator from a celestial sect? Even when the person isn't here, his traps and puppets alone are enough to cause us so much trouble." Another practitioner nodded in agreement and said, "We are still too inexperienced. The methods of such a cultivator are indeed not something we can compare to. I can't imagine how powerful that director is. Alright, let's not talk too much. The mission is more important." Following that, the few of them began to explore the surrounding rooms according to the information they obtained. Lu Yuan overheard their conversation. He was speechless when he heard them say that the trap he had arranged was powerful. The trap he set up had already lost 90% of its power. Even with such simple traps, they were reduced to such a sorry state. He really didn't know if they were too weak or if he was too strong. Whatever. As long as they could come in safely, everything was good. The actors were already in place, and it was time for him, the main lead, to appear. He was very curious. After these guys took him away, where would they go? High-end hunters often appeared as prey. Were they hunters or prey? Lu Yuan laughed sinisterly. Chapter 79. 79. Power and backgrounds are important. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 79. Power and backgrounds are important. Translator. Nyo-i.bo Studio Editor. Nyo-i.bo Studio, Silver. Rank Lu, we have found the person His Majesty is looking for. Lu Ming, who had just returned to the main hall, immediately heard the good news from his teammates. One of the practitioners was carrying a black sack on his shoulder. Are you sure it's the target? Don't worry, this little girl's appearance is very outstanding. She is very recognizable. Moreover, this little girl doesn't have any cultivation. I made her fall asleep with a little divine ability. Don't worry. Alright, since we've already succeeded, let's leave as soon as possible, lest anything happens. Alright. After thinking that they had completed their mission, they quickly left Lu Yuan's courtyard and met up with practitioner Wu outside. Meanwhile, the people who went to get the Buddha child statue had also completed their mission perfectly. The statue of the Buddha child with a strange expression was currently in the possession of one of the practitioners. Seeing this, Lu Ming decisively ordered everyone to retreat. After all, they couldn't guarantee that the commotion here would not be discovered by the other practitioners if they continued to stay. Although there were no Foundation establishment cultivators in the Devil Slayers Division headquarters at the moment, there were still many silver. Rank practitioners here. Once they were delayed, it would be difficult for them to escape if Lu Yuan returned. After Lu Ming and the others left the Devil Slayers Division headquarters, they immediately rushed towards the direction of the Imperial Palace. However, unbeknownst to Lu Ming and his group, after they left, the originally quiet Devil Slayers Division headquarters became lively again. Countless figures emerged from the shadows. It seemed that these people were deliberately hiding. As Lu Ming and his group were focused on completing their mission, they did not notice the group of people hiding. In the dungeon of the Devil Slayers Division, someone reported, "Miss Su, those guys have left." Su Wanner, who was standing in a C-grade prison cell, turned to look at the devil-slaying practitioner at the door. "Did they notice you at all?" The practitioner shook his head and replied, "No. They didn't notice us from the beginning to the end. According to the director's orders, we have deliberately diverted the guards in his courtyard and study so that these guys could enter smoothly. They've already succeeded and left through the back door of the headquarters." "Miss Su, are we actually going against the Emperor in the future?" Su Wanner interrupted him directly and said with a cold expression, "Just obey the director's orders. He knows what to do." "Yes." After Su Wanner finished speaking, she turned to look at the cell in front of her. The person who was locked up in the C-grade prison was a devil-slaying practitioner. The reason why he was imprisoned here was simple. He was the mole who had passed the information to Lu Ming. In fact, not long after Lu Ming and the others entered the headquarters, this person had already been captured and locked up in the dungeon. Lu Yuan was able to catch the mole very easily, using the same method he used to discover Demoness Meng Ruian's true identity. He first used the system to run background checks on all the practitioners. When he discovered that someone had a cultivation technique that obviously did not belong to the righteous way or did not conform to the cultivation techniques of the Devil Slayers Division, he would mark the other party and secretly investigate them. After all, in the Devil Slayers Division, the position of gold. Rank and director were very difficult for enemies to infiltrate. However, the remaining practitioners were not immune to tampering. Cautious as he was, Lu Yuan naturally wouldn't allow such a dangerous person like a mole to exist by his side. A certain demoness with great luck was an exception. After some secret investigation, he actually found a few moles. Without exception, they all cultivated some divine abilities only possessed by the imperial family. The reason why they didn't practice the imperial family's cultivation technique was most likely because they were afraid that others would notice something amiss and expose their identities. Su Wanner looked at the captured mole in front of her and narrowed her eyes slightly. Even if you don't talk, I still have ways of finding out what you know. As soon as she finished speaking, a strong smell of blood came from the prison. A moment later, Su Wanner wiped the blood off her hands and walked out of the prison. Let's go. I already know what's going on in this fellow's mind. There should be results soon. Yes. In the Great Xia Kingdom's imperial palace, Lu Yuan, who had just arrived, had already learned about the situation with Lu Ming and his group from his clone. When he found out that this group of people had captured his clone and they were heading towards the imperial palace, the remaining doubts he had were completely dispelled. Director, please follow me. His Majesty is in the harem palace now. Lu Yuan nodded and followed eunuch Zhao, who was leading the way. Under Zhao Youwei's lead, Lu Yuan quickly arrived in front of the palace of concubines. A large number of imperial guards were gathered in front of the palace. Lu Yuan immediately sensed that something was off. Weren't these imperial guards a little too strong? There was a total of 30 imperial guards at the entrance. There weren't many of them, but all of them were at the foundation establishment stage. Such a lineup was very interesting. Director, is something wrong? His Majesty is still waiting for you in the palace. Unlike his humble tone from before, Zhao Youwei now wore a mocking face. Lu Yuan looked at the imperial guards who were gradually surrounding him. He was surprisingly calm, as if he did not notice that something was wrong. Eunuch Zhao, it seems that His Majesty has been waiting for this day for a long time. Just as Lu Yuan finished speaking, a man over 50 years old emerged from the palace. That's right. I've been waiting for this day for 15 years. This person was none other than the Emperor of the Great Xia Kingdom, Chinda. He was clearly the Emperor of a dynasty, but at this moment, Chinda looked like a person on death's door. Not only was his face pale, but even his glabella was filled with the aura of death. It was obvious that he was about to run out of life. With the help of eunuch Zhao, Chinda quickly came to the side of the imperial guards. Chinda said, Director Green Flame, should I praise you for being brave? Or should I call you arrogant? You actually dared to come to the palace alone when you know that there's a grudge between us. Did you really think you were immortal? Look around you, Director Green Flame. This is the gift I have prepared for you. There are a total of 30 blood warrior monks with innate stage cultivation. This is the trump card that I have painstakingly accumulated over the years. Although they can't compare to true innate stage martial artists, these blood warriors can form a unique battle formation. A battle formation formed by 30 blood warrior monks. Unless you have the cultivation of the core formation stage, even with your extraordinary abilities, you must die here today. Ha 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 ha, thinking of this, Chinda laughed proudly. As he laughed, he slowly stopped when he realized something. He discovered that Lu Yuan was still very calm in such a desperate situation. The latter was so calm that it made him feel uneasy. To Chinda's surprise, Lu Yuan slowly took off the mask on his face. This was also the first time Chinda saw Lu Yuan's face. What he saw was a handsome face. Coupled with that cold temperament, Lu Yuan really looked like an immortal who had descended from the heavens. Lu Yuan exclaimed, Chinda, actually, the path of celestial cultivation is not much different from the battles in the mortal world. Whether it's cultivating or surviving in the martial world, you have to consider power and background. In my eyes, the Emperor of the mortal world is just a small fry. Moreover, you already said that we have a grudge between us. Do you think that I would actually come alone today? Chinda was stunned when he heard this. Senior Sister Mu, Senior Brother Bai, stop watching. It's time for you to come down. Hee, I knew you must have something fun to do when you called me over. Under Chinda's stunned gaze, two figures rapidly descended from the sky and stood beside Lu Yuan. These two people were Mu Chichi and Bai Dafei. Without exception, they were all Foundation establishment cultivators. Mu Chichi was one of the top 10 talents on the mortal rank. As for Bai Dafei, although he was just a pill refiner, he was no pushover when it came to a real battle. After all, Bai Dafei was also a Foundation establishment cultivator who could be listed on the mortal rank. Bai Dafei landed beside Lu Yuan and said quizzically, "Junior brother Lu, you've only left the mountain for 3 years, and you already encountered such a strange event like the Emperor planning a rebellion. Aren't you the reincarnation of a jinx?" He continued, "Also, this old emperor called Chinda is really bold. He actually dared to scheme against you, the direct disciple of our sect. When I read your letter, I thought you were joking. I didn't expect it to be true." In response, Lu Yuan spread out his hands, indicating that all of this had nothing to do with him. It was Chinda who was looking for trouble. At this moment, Chinda also noticed that something was wrong. He looked at Lu Yuan and said with an ugly expression, "Green Flame, you're a disciple of a righteous sect. To deal with a mortal like me, you actually called your fellow disciples over in advance. Don't you have any pride?" Lu Yuan looked at him as if he was looking at a fool. He mocked, "If the pride that you speak of is to enter the tiger's den alone when you know that there is danger, then I'm sorry. I'm really not a righteous disciple. After all, compared to one-on-ones, I prefer group fights. Did you take me for a fool who would not use his background and connections? Senior Sister Mu, Senior Brother Bai, let's fight. There's nothing more to say now." Mu Chichi, who had been waiting anxiously, waved her hand. The next moment, several sword orbs instantly flew out and transformed into flying swords that surrounded her. Mu Chichi controlled the flying swords with a look of excitement. "I can finally fight. I've been waiting impatiently for a long time. Dealing with a mortal emperor who colluded with the enemy. I've never had such fun before." As soon as she finished speaking, Mu Chichi pointed her flying swords at Chinda and his group. Faced with Mu Chichi's fierce flying swords, Chinda hurriedly shouted, "Form the formation. Quickly form the formation." High-end hunters often appeared as prey. Higher-level hunters would even take the initiative to gang up for battles. Lu Yuan was the specialist when it came to ganging up for battles. Single duels. The phrase did not exist in his dictionary. Chapter 80. 80.1 Predicted your prediction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 80.1 Predicted your prediction. Translator. Nyo.bo Studio Editor. Nyo.bo Studio. As Chinda shouted the order to form the formation, the 30 blood warrior monks immediately took action. A large amount of blood chi emerged from the bodies of these blood warrior monks. The blood chi continuously interweaved and finally condensed together, transforming into a huge crimson-red deity. It was the divine ability, Jile Buddha descent. Facing this frightening crimson-red deity, Mu Chichi was not afraid at all. Instead, she was pumped to fight. "The fallen Buddha of the Huanchi sect, I didn't expect you guys to even know this." She called out, "Senior Brother Bai, Junior Brother Lu, let's attack together. I can't deal with this guy alone." "Alright." Bai Dafei and Lu Yuan didn't object to her order. In this situation, the person with the highest cultivation naturally had the authority to give orders. The crimson-red deity, which was cast by 30 innate stage martial artists at the expense of their vitality, had cultivation that was close to the core formation stage. It probably had the strength of a pseudo-core cultivator. Mu Chichi was indeed incapable of dealing with it alone. While Lu Yuan and the other two were fighting the crimson-red deity, Chinda saw that the situation was unfavorable to him and immediately ran towards the secret passage behind him. As for Eunuch Zhao, he was naturally by Chinda's side. Chinda ran while he planned his next steps. Now that his plan had been exposed, it was undoubtedly foolish of him to dream of continuing carrying out his reincarnation plan steadily. However, although the situation was bad, it was not unsalvageable. At least for now, he had already retrieved the Jile Buddha child statue and the goddess Su Waner. He had prepared all the things needed for the reincarnation ritual. As long as he completed his reincarnation, he would be able to use the method of substitution to successfully avoid this crisis. As for the concern of being hunted down by the Qinyan sect, Chinda did not care. At most, he would escape to the territory of the devils and join the Huanxi sect. After all, to Chinda, immortality was what he pursued. Everything else was not important. Once he considered all this, he decided to play all his trump cards. At this point, the only way he could overcome his predicament was by successfully using the reincarnation technique. However, using the reincarnation technique required time. Lu Yuan and the other two celestial sect disciples were a threat. The Qinyan sect outside the imperial capital was also a threat. The later the Qinyan sect found out about his wrongdoings, the more advantageous it was for him. Following the secret passage, Chinda and Zhao Yuwei soon arrived at an underground space. This underground space was astonishingly huge. It covered almost half of the underground space of the imperial palace. It was apparent how much effort Chinda had put into creating this underground space. In the center of this underground space stood a huge golden Buddha statue. This Buddha statue was the main statue of the Huanxi Jile. The Buddha statue that had been placed in the secret chamber of his royal study was just a clone statue that was connected to the underground Buddha. The statue of the Huanxi Jile was lying on a withered lotus flower with a strange smile on its face. Beneath the lotus flower, there were a large number of blood-colored patterns. Upon closer inspection, one would realize that these blood-colored patterns were not randomly arranged. Instead, they vaguely formed a special array. This array was the key to Chinda's reincarnation and recultivation. It was the reincarnation array. There were actually many strict conditions to set up this reincarnation array. First of all, a large amount of fresh blood from living people was needed as material. Secondly, the location of the array was also very particular. It had to be on a dragon vein that was filled with luck. This was because a reincarnated devil like the Jile Buddha child was an existence that the heavens would not tolerate. When it was born, it would definitely attract heavenly retribution. Without the protection of great luck, even if the Jile Buddha child was lucky enough to be born, it would still be killed by the heavenly lightning in the end. Therefore, although the effects of the reincarnation technique were rewarding, it was not easy for anyone to actually reincarnate and cultivate again. If anything was to go wrong, it would lead to death. After Chinda and Zhao Yuwei escaped to the underground space, Zhao Yuwei hurriedly asked, "Your Majesty, what should we do now?" The current Zhao Yuwei was no longer as arrogant as he was when he faced Lu Yuan. Fear was written all over his face. He had thought that the ambush of 30 blood warrior monks would be enough for them to get rid of Lu Yuan without anyone noticing. They had taken action in advance because they were worried that Lu Yuan would find out about their cooperation with the Huanxi sect after he returned to the Devil Slayers division and found out that Su Waner was missing. Once Lu Yuan confirmed that they were colluding with the Huanxi sect and reported it to the Qinyan sect, a large number of Foundation establishment cultivators from the Qinyan sect would arrive within a day given the short distance between the Qinyan sect and the imperial capital. When that happened, no matter what preparations they made, they would have no chance of winning against a behemoth like the Qinyan sect. It was precisely because of this that Chinda decided to act early and not give Lu Yuan a chance to report back to the sect. Chinda taking such a big risk was definitely directly related to Lu Yuan. Originally, Chinda had thought that when Lu Yuan left the Devil Slayers division, he would have the opportunity to kidnap Su Waner. However, he did not expect that Lu Yuan was comparable to a tortoise. After arriving in the imperial capital, he had never left the Devil Slayers division for 3 years. Was this something that a human could do? Was Lu Yuan's goal of cultivation to become a tortoise instead of a celestial? Did he plan to become a tortoise hermit? Lu Yuan's silent hermit technique perfectly hit Chinda's Achilles heel. Lu Yuan had good talent, high cultivation, and a long lifespan. He could naturally afford to waste his time. However, Chinda's talent was poor, his cultivation was lacking, and his lifespan was about to be exhausted. Naturally, he could not afford to waste it. If he had a choice, Chinda would never choose to attack a Qinyan sect direct disciple. Once he made a move on Lu Yuan, not only would he have to face the Qinyan sect's wrath, but even the great Xia's imperial family would sever all ties with him and spare no effort to hunt him down. Chinda was already staking everything on the line so that he could successfully reincarnate. He initially thought that he had seized a good opportunity to catch Lu Yuan off guard. Before the Qinyan sect could react, he would have completed his reincarnation and cultivated in advance, creating a perfect time difference. In the end, Lu Yuan actually ruined everything. Usually, the other directors of the Devil Slayers division would first find evidence, then arrest the suspect. They would only seek external help if the situation became difficult. However, Lu Yuan had no evidence yet. He skipped the previous steps and jumped straight to asking for external help. This was only the first time Chinda had invited Lu Yuan over to his palace. Yet, Lu Yuan actually called 2 Qinyan sect foundation establishment disciples over in advance. From the looks of it, these 2 Qinyan sect disciples must have arrived long ago. It was impossible for their appearance today to be a coincidence. This meant that Lu Yuan had been on guard against him a long time ago. Chinda initially thought that he was witty for breaking the routine and taking the initiative to act first so that he could catch Lu Yuan off guard. To his dismay, Lu Yuan actually predicted his act of desperation and directly sought outside help. So, Lu Yuan predicted his prediction. Your Majesty. Just as Chinda was still thinking of countermeasures, Eunuch Zhao's voice pulled him back to reality. Seeing Chinda come back to his senses, Eunuch Zhao hurriedly asked, Your Majesty, what should we do now? Chinda looked at Eunuch Zhao, and his gaze gradually became profound. He did not answer Eunuch Zhao's question directly. Instead, he said in a deep voice, Eunuch Zhao, how do you think I treated you? Upon hearing this, Zhao Yuwei, who was over 50 years old, naturally understood the meaning of these words. His expression immediately became terrified. However, before he could do anything, a huge black shadow instantly enveloped his body. Zhao Yuwei raised his head with difficulty and saw that the huge Huanqi Jiao, who was originally motionless, had lowered its head to look at him as it revealed a terrifying and strange smile. The huge black shadow was cast by Huanqi Jiao lowering its head. Ah! Not long after, screams and terrifying chewing sounds came from the underground space. As he watched Zhao Yuwei being swallowed by Huanqi Jiao, Chinda muttered to himself, Eunuch Zhao, since things have come to this, you should do one more thing for me. At least not now, the situation here must not be discovered by the Qinyan sect. I need to drag this out as long as I can. Outside the imperial capital, a huge crimson barrier had actually risen from the city walls. It completely enveloped the capital and isolated it from the outside world.